Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is a new ZeroPoint module. I am Denk. Most of you might know me from the Darrow Foundation as well as Civilware. I'm joined here with Xylem and Six of Clubs, who are both members of our development team in Civilware. We're going to be going over the new decentralized web standard called TELA. First, it was released to a group of developers within our community, and then subsequently opened up to the public. But what we're really looking for here is to just get some feedback, since we're still in the early stages in its development. So thank you for all the feedback that we've received already, and we'll continue to look out for any other feedback that you might provide. So in short, TELA is really a way for us to organize the existing web infrastructure in a way that would preserve user autonomy, increase privacy, and of course, decentralize the hosting and viewing of web content. So with that, I will hand it over to Six, and he will provide a demonstration, and we'll talk about the features of TELA. We can also talk about what some of the ideas that we have been floating around and what might be coming in the future. And then we'd also like to open the floor to anyone. I know some of you have been playing with it already, so we'll have a chance to answer questions, or you'll have a chance to say your piece about TELA's development. So Six, go ahead and take us away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Six, and as Dank had mentioned, the topic of today's discussion is about the TELA decentralized web standard. So to begin talking about TELA, we should mention TELA uses smart contracts to store and manage the data, or the files, as we had mentioned earlier, as TELA is in some ways very similar to a file system. With TELA content, if we're looking at the internals, we can break TELA content down into two different smart contract components. The first component of TELA content is a index smart contract, which is essentially the index or a manifest of everything that the TELA application or TELA content contains. The second component is a TELA doc, which is essentially the file or the application code. Those TELA docs are what get put into the index and stored as files for that application. As we had mentioned, a large focus of TELA is to work with existing web infrastructure. So TELA supports common languages such as HTML, JavaScript, CSS. TELA is not limited to those languages. It can essentially support any programming language. Additional features we can talk about with TELA is it's integrated, or it supports Darrow's XSWD protocol, which is a permissioned WebSocket protocol for Darrow wallets. This allows TELA sites easy connectivity and interaction with Darrow wallets. The TELA contracts have utilized existing header standards in the ecosystem. They use the Artificer NFA standard TELA contracts are easily identifiable and consistent within the ecosystem. TELA contracts also have a rating system integrated into each contract. This is a way that developers and users can navigate and gain some feedback or provide some feedback for developers. I think from here we can jump into a bit more of a visual demonstration. One of the tools that is part of the TELA package is the TELA CLI, which is the main tool that developers and users can use at this point to access and interact with TELA content. So the TELA CLI allows for developers to install their content and applications, and it allows users to access that content or those applications. I'm going to quickly connect the TELA CLI to my simulator. Once I've connected TELA CLI, I can use the help command to view all the different functions and features within TELA CLI. One of the main functions that users are likely to explore is the search functions within TELA CLI. So one large focus of this tool is to help propagate all of the applications and content in a single place for users and developers to access. We can quickly search applications with a query like search indexes, which will pull up a list of all the currently installed TELA applications. And we can take one of the smart contract IDs from one of these TELA applications and use the serve command in TELA CLI to serve that smart contract ID as a application. So we will do that now. Once I input that command, the TELA demo application opened up in my device's default browser. First of all, this is also part of the TELA repository. This demo application is somewhat an educational piece for developers to look at and learn how to structure and work with TELA content. To quickly explain some of the functionality in here, you can connect your Dero wallets with XSWD. There is a list full of commands that you can use once the wallet is connected to help developers in learning about the different calls or commands that they can use in their TELA applications. So it will show the body and the response of the call. As we've discussed so far with the two TELA components being the index and the doc, those can be further utilized in different containment methods to create either large code bases or different types of content. And we can discuss that a little further, starting with libraries. So as most developers are probably familiar with the term libraries, to explain that for users, a library is a piece of software that can be utilized by different applications. And in the context of TELA, it is that exact same thing. So with TELA, we have the ability to install libraries that are not intended to be served as applications like we just witnessed, but their intention is more so to be consumed by other applications.
So we're talking about TELA. What we really meant for this ZeroPoint module was to go over TELA at a higher level. We've prepared this presentation a few different ways, and they've all been more technical leaning, which is why it's a little more difficult to kind of strip away the technicals, because TELA, while we tried to make it as easy for the user as well as the developer, there are still a lot of technical aspects. I mean, it's purely technical, really. So it's hard to really express how everything works together in a coherent way without diving too deep. But at a higher level, what TELA does is it stores traditional application files and content on the Dero blockchain in a standard way. And there are two main types of smart contracts that are utilized in the standard, and they are independent of one another, so they will be deployed separately. But the document type, where those types of contracts would hold like HTML code, CSS code, JavaScript, and so forth, that code is all stored in the doc type smart contracts. And then we have the main entry point into every TELA application, which are stored as indexed types. The indexes are kind of like a traditional website where, the index.html file is really the router and manifest for the entire website. The index smart contract acts the same way, where you will embed these standard headers that we use, so that you might know from the NFA standard that was released. And it'll also store the smart contract IDs for every single doc type smart contract that you want to include in your TELA application. So it really bundles them up into one smart contract as a manifest. All of that is stored on the blockchain. And then we have host applications like the TELA command line interface, or CLI, and Ngram, which allow you to serve that data. So what it does is it grabs the index smart contract from the Dero blockchain, analyzes it, grabs the data from each of the doc types that are embedded within it, and then inflates those files on your local machine, which is then served locally through a web server that's integrated into the CLI and Ngram, or the host application, which then serves that content within the user's local browser. So it's really eliminating the need for any sort of connections to a third-party server. So a little more privacy there. And then it also allows users to be in full control of the code that they're actually executing. And there's going to be a lot of tools that are currently in development that will be released along the way that will aid developers and even users in being able to analyze the TELA content that's actually being run on their machine. And we can get into that in a little more detail. That is the main workflow of a TELA application and the surrounding ecosystem, which would be the standard and the host applications. There are some current limitations as far as file sizes, right? There's only so much you can fit in a transaction to the blockchain. So we have worked around those limitations by utilizing the index smart contracts within this standard in some creative ways. And then, of course, we'll have some tools available for developers to deploy large-scale libraries, let's say. For example, if a commonly used library would be like the React JavaScript library. We could actually put that entire library into a TELA index smart contract as a library type and store it on the blockchain so that any future developer who wants to use the React framework can just import that library into their TELA project and have full access to it without needing to call some third-party server. It'll just come directly from the blockchain. So there are some unique use cases that we would also like to allow within TELA applications and within the standard. Right now, with the version that we released publicly, it's a little more difficult to make changes to the content because there is a mix of immutable and mutable contracts that are being utilized in the standard. And with the nature of that, adding content at this point usually means deploying another standard contract. But we'll try to, and this is a result of the early feedback that we've received, we'll try to come up with some efficient solutions in that regard. So thank you for the feedback. We really want to have more people get eyes on it and play with it, have them provide even more feedback to us. That way we can keep improving it. But with that being said, I think I will first open up the floor to anyone who might have any questions thus far. Hopefully we can try to keep it to the high level questions, and then Six can kind of go over some of the features, the more technical features that we have within our host applications. He can also go over some of the integration work that we've done and possibly go over some of the tooling that developers can utilize. But first, any questions?
Yeah. So I'm curious. You mentioned that you had to be creative regarding the smart contract size in order to be able to have, I guess, multiple doc files as part of your website. So I was wondering if Six or anyone else could address that. Like, how did you guys get around that limitation? Because isn't it like 20 kilobyte?
So you're correct, Moral Priest. The installation size for smart contract is limited to about 20 kilobytes. So the way that the current publicly released version handles is through the use of indexes. So I think briefly, before I get into that discussion, as Dank had mentioned, there's the two main components of TELA applications being the index and the doc smart contracts. Those contracts are very true to the word building block, be utilized in a different manner of ways. We could incorporate large file sizes or large libraries into a single TELA application. So to do that with the publicly released version, it's essentially just splitting up any file that would be larger than that 20 kilobytes. So if you have, say, a 40 kilobyte file, you would just put that into two documents so you could upload it and stay within these installation size. And then those two documents can be embedded into an index so that they can be referenced back as a single smart contract ID. So you can imagine this with like hundreds or a more substantial number than two documents. It's a lot easier to reference them at a singular point, like a smart contract ID versus individual references. So that's one way that can be handled. Another way that it can be handled is through the use of docs. And when you combine that with a indexer like Nomen, you can start to gather libraries or different pieces of content in that fashion as well. So those are the two current methods that could be accomplished with the TELA package.
Okay, very clever. Another question I had was, to your knowledge, is there any other blockchain project that allows storing all of the component of a website? Because that's basically what TELA is doing, right? It's storing all of the component of the website on chain. So meaning not only, as you mentioned, the index or the structure of the website, but also like the content of the website, including, all of the bits and pieces, like as well as, like CSS, images, application, code. So all of it is technically on chain. So is there the first blockchain to do that, or is it the only private blockchain to do that? I'm just trying to see where TELA fit in comparison to other blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, not knowing everything about every other blockchain project that's out there. But I have seen some things like it out there, but I haven't seen anything in such a, an overtime commit-based system where that can be tracked and audited by all participants in the network. I think, and updated in that, for, at least as far as in Texas are concerned. I don't think that is something that I've seen before. As far as I'm aware, it's pretty unique in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, you could utilize, let's say, the Bitcoin blockchain, right? Instead of ordinals, you could store, web content in a similar fashion. I think we have the luxury of a little more extended functionality with the nature of Dero smart contracts, where we have an interpreter and we can actually analyze the code ourselves and see it before we execute it, and even run tests on it before we execute it. But I think our design is unique. However, I wouldn't want to say that we're the only blockchain that can store things on the blockchain itself.
Hi guys, can I jump in a bit?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. So to more please question regarding any existing blockchain and stores content, everything in terms of like end to end. I think there is one called Arweave. You can check out this project called PermaWeb. So Arweave itself is a chain, and you can store content. You can store your website. Basically, if you have a WordPress website, and there's no size limitation, so you can explore that. So if you're asking, just specifically answering Lawrence question regarding is there any other chain out there that's doing something similar, Arweave is exactly doing what you're asking. Now, the couple of questions I have when I'm looking at the demonstration here. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to understand the process of the beginning that you guys show. So when you guys do a search index, right? So that's basically you are trying to discover all the SCID available in the blockchain, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That was just for the index smart contract.
Okay. So when you do this, as I saw, like there is an author here. So the author is basically the DAO address, essentially is the owner of the SCID, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and then when you do when you call the SCID, I saw some when there was a demonstration for the SCID, what it does is it visits the SCID, and it resolves to a website in the browser. All right, that's how I'm understanding based on the demo.
That is correct. Yes.
All right, great, fantastic. So when we come to like storing content, Dan has really mentioned about the size limitation. Thanks for that. When it comes to storing content, I think one of the challenges here is size limitation. I'm sure that has been discussed. So I'm just trying to understand how can we so I'm thinking of I want to store videos or pictures that's larger than 1.5 megabyte, for example. And is it possible that when we create this website that is under 20 KB, but within that 20 KB, instead of putting like a media file, we put like a full URI to the media that is being posted in third-party servers. So when you open up the browser, the media is being streamed, but it's not getting that media from the chain itself because size limitation, but it's streamed from the video is streamed from a third-party server. Is it possible?
Yeah. So in that sort of situation, that would be actually stored in like the doc type smart contract where like the HTML code is or the JavaScript code is. You can obviously, or any developer could, hard code in, links to another website, right, from the traditional web. So there's nothing stopping a developer from doing that. But we did just want to highlight that it is possible for you to put everything on chain.
Okay. I mean, if the size is 20 KB, unless you are getting it like Ordino's getting it from, like I think it's sets, they're getting the code and then retrieving everything and then piecing back into one big piece. If you can do that with Devo, then I think that's a good thing. But if the size, let's say the video size is 10 megabyte, because you can't store it in a single transaction, it will break it up into multiple transactions. Are you able to retrieve all those transactions and make it into one content? Is that what you're saying is possible?
Yeah, well, obviously for like video content or high resolution images, that's probably not something you would want to put on the blockchain because it would just be expensive, right, to deploy that. And it's also probably not something that, every person or user needs to have access to. I mean, we, like in the TELA demo that we showed the website, there were SVG images, and those are actually stored on chain. So pretty much everything within that TELA demo is on chain. There's no references to anything outside or external to the blockchain.
The nature of running applications in a browser gives you access to anything that's accessible on the internet, basically from any connection. So you can merge content from a node and from anywhere on the World Wide Web on one spot, if that's what you're going for. But you got to keep in mind, if that's what you're shooting for, then a lot of the advantages of TELA as a platform are being discarded. So, if you're trying to deliver code to every node in the network to put it in every user's hands with one click in their wallets or in whatever clients they're using to browse this content, then you're leveraging a system that allows your users to really limit their connection and their traffic and their all the fingerprinting and analysis that goes along with that. So the moment you start embedding stuff that's not on chain that requires the user to connect to third parties, then those advantages are lost, right?
I will add though that we're not giving up on the idea of being able to come up with solutions as far as I guess securing or at least verifying off-chain data to be used in the TELA applications. So we'll continue to explore what we can solution there. But as of right now, we're not looking to put like 10 gigabyte video files or anything like that on chain.
Okay. Another question that I have is when it comes to visiting content. So let's say you have an SCID form and your node is I think like stats in the blockchain, I think doesn't matter where you are hosting your node, because you're not accessing from your node itself, you're accessing from the blockchain. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. So when it comes to that, if I want to access when the internet is down, when this website that I previously accessed, do they cache or store locally? So in the event the internet is disconnected, can I still see that content being served locally?
It depends. So as we had mentioned, the TELA package can be utilized in a variety of host applications like Ngram or CLI. So with Ngram and CLI, they utilize the Gnomon indexer, which creates a local database of everything that it's indexing. So in that situation, you would potentially have the local copies of what would be needed to serve the TELA application.
Okay. So because the first time when I saw about TELA, it kind of reminds me of this project called ZeroNet. I'm not quite sure how many of you recall or remember this project back in 2016. There was this project called ZeroNet. So basically what they do is they don't store the content on chain, but it's a P2P decentralized web application where you can create your own website. There's no such limitation, and it's served locally, and anybody who wants to access it is via, if I recall correctly, is via a Bitcoin address. So when you access via that Bitcoin address, your content is being stored locally. and give visit. Then when you access another person's content, their content will be stored locally. So even the internet is down, you can still access the content locally as per normal, as long as you have visited the content site before. So when the first time when I saw TELA, it reminds me of ZeroNet, and that's the reason why I kind of like, okay, this is interesting. It doesn't work like ZeroNet, but again, because you are accessing content from the blockchain itself and not from your own local host, allowing other people to access it. So that is the difference here. So yeah, pretty much quite a big limitation when it comes to content itself, especially in terms of size. But I think I like the idea as well. For this. Anyway, yeah, that's all. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and these front end can pull in data from unlimited amount of other contracts too, and inflate it and expose functions to users. I mean, it's quite a complex web of stuff available for these front ends to pull in on the chain already. That pool will just continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight the importance of having your own local copy of the blockchain, because when you lose access to the internet, if you have your own copy of your blockchain, you will still be able to access all the TELA content that has been deployed up to your latest height. So that's something that you can own for an access forever. Something that I also like to add to your comment about large media. I mean, from the way that TELA works right now, it's just basically like your own server, serving you all the files that are defined on the index smart contract. So you can have theoretically endless amount of docs linked to your index smart contract, and then all those docs will be served to your browser as they would on a traditional web. So the fact that you can get those files on your system, and the fact that you can also run a arbitrary code, most likely JavaScript, it allows you to, on the front end, inflate and rebuild if you can by your own means and maybe your own process, like have some way to recreate all those files, maybe images or video or GIFs, but you can still develop a way to inflate those files and recreate and that those large media files. That's obviously something that will have to be implemented on the front end. But as Six said, I think that the current architecture is more than enough to work as a building blocks, and it depends on us as developers and users to create on top of it whatever we want to. And by the way it's implemented, everything that we currently can, most of what we currently can do on the traditional web.
He could segue into a feature from there that ties into these past two topics. So in terms of retrieving files locally, obviously TELA is doing that when it's inflating the content to serve, but part of what you can do with TELA as well is use it to simply clone the files. So just get a copy of them without running anything. So we could tie that back into the not having access to the internet situation. You could potentially run any of your clone files in that instance. The other interesting thing you can do with cloning, as Moko is saying, if you have your own node, you essentially have the history of the chain. So if you happen to be running a full node and you have all of the history, the way TELA indexes are structured, they can be mutable, allowing for application updates. So if a index is mutable and it does get updated, it will store the transaction ID of that update in the index smart contract, which can then be used to reference back to the index at that transaction ID or at that commit state, we can call it. So if you're familiar with Git, it's very similar to that, how you can reference different points of a Git repository by its commit hash. We can do the same thing with TELA indexes by referencing their transaction ID as the commit hash to retrieve all of the code or the state of the application at that block ID.
So essentially what you can do is you can, let's say there had been, several updates to a TELA application. You could actually target each update and clone at that state, grab the local files as they were at that height and inflate them locally. And then you could either serve them or, just edit or alter them as you needed to. But you basically have all of the tools available to audit those changes.
And in that sense, even if a developer installed a mutable index for an application, if, say, they broke it or were coerced into removing it and the user base wanted it back, they could simply clone a past commit before the height that it was right and reinstall it. You can pull in the doc from any other TELA application into a new index in a single transaction and redeploy it.
Another question that I have regarding searching of search index. So when you do a search index during the demo, I see that it's just SCIDs. So is there a way, or maybe this is in your pipeline, but I just want to know, would there be another way of showing not just the SCID, but another name? So let's say you created a content called, which is very fancy, let's say my website name is this. But instead of showing the SCID, you have site hello, for example. So I see when I search an index, I search the index and all I see is that the name of the content, possibly the content rather than the SCID. Because at least on that manner, I know, oh, this looks interesting, the title looks interesting. Maybe I want to search this particular name, but instead of searching or guessing that this SCID is basically what the content is storing.
Yeah. In the TELA CLI, you have functionality to do things like that. So, using Nomen, there is a fairly extensive amount of queries you can do to find different TELA documents or applications. So a couple of the stores that are on TELA smart contracts, as we had mentioned, they utilize the Artificer standards. So those all fall in line with many of the current smart contracts in the ecosystem. So if any lists or indexers are using those headers, they would populate with the names and descriptions and icons seamlessly into any application utilizing those existing headers. Another store on the TELA smart contracts is a DURL, which is essentially just an identifying store for the TELA document or index. So you can definitely search by DURL or more specific queries to find the TELA thing you are looking for.
Going back to your question, you were asking if you could use other strings as some sort of forwarding system for contract IDs. It wouldn't be much different than the way the existing name service on DeroPoint. So yes, you could do that.
Okay. So when it comes to let's say because the content is immutable, if let's say I really create a website, I upload it to the DeroPoint chain, have a specific SCID for it, and then I realized that, I need to update it. I presume, based on what we have discussed, because of the immutability, you need to create another version of it with another SCID for it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So so when it comes to the indexes, so I have like version 1, version 2, version 3. Is currently, is there a technical possibility where those past version of SCID, I do not want them to be searched from the index, can be hidden or privatized, and only allow the recent version that I uploaded to be advertised or able to be indexed? Is that something that is possible?
So you would like that as the developer to be able to say, don't list this index? Is that what I understand?
Don't list this SCID because this is not the updated content. This updated content is inside this particular version of in a new SCID.
Yes, that's possible. If something were to happen to a TELA application that you or I installed, we would be able to remove it from the indexer for people who are searching. The smart contract ID would exist still on chain. The TELA content wouldn't populate or be searchable anymore.
So when you mentioned developer can remove this or hide it, so as an end user who wants to use it, do I have the ability to remove it, or as in not remove because it's already there, but to hide it, or do I need to inform the developer to say don't show this SCID instead?
Good question. So on that topic, one feature that TELA has incorporated within all of its smart contracts is a rating system. So currently, one of the best ways for users to filter content is through the rating system. They can use that to eliminate content below certain ratings from their search results. And with that being said, there's definitely more filtering and things that can be done on the users end there to filter their lists as the content in the application must grow larger.
Okay. Because I would imagine that if this goes mainstream, people do make mistakes after upon uploading, and there will always be a new version of, a previous one. So I'm pretty sure that people would want to have the ability to hide those SID that is not, updated. And so if the process is having a rating system so that this thing will either not show or being the last thing to pop up during the search. I think probably need to work on something on that. Because if not, you will have like tons and tons of SCID that is probably outdated that people may not want to see. And it can become, eventually will be lead to spam basically, right? Even though it's original content, but it's outdated content. And because there's tons of it that's not updated and it's still being shown during the search index, then people would see this as moniker. This is filled with spam instead of the actual content that you want to see, the actual updated content that you want to see. So this is just my comments based on what been discussed here.
Yeah, no, that was a good question because that was one of the concerns that we thought about early on, and the rating system seems to suffice there. So, let's say a doc is deprecated, or even the entire app itself has completely been redesigned, and the original was immutable. Then with the help of the developer or anyone can actually downvote any smart contract within the standard. So from the developer's perspective, you could also lean on your users to help downvote things that are no longer relevant. So at least they, will either be at the bottom of the search results or maybe even not even showing at all, depending on the user's preferences. Correct me if I'm wrong, 6, but I believe the default is if it's less than 30% favorable, then it will automatically be excluded.
That's correct. Yeah, default is 30.
All right. Thank you, guys. No more questions for me. Thank you.
On the topic of ratings, the way TELA has handled that is interesting. So if we take a look at the rating system, it's simply just a 0 to 99 number. So any user or developer, like Dank had mentioned, can submit a rating, and it is one rating per account. So with the rating number, the higher the number, the better the rating is, or the better the experience would be perceived as. To further that, TELA has also provided a extended interpretation of those numbers that can be optionally utilized if users choose to do so. Essentially what it allows is more commentary or a more subjective detail to be added along with that 0 to 99 number. So what this can do for users or developers is gauge more specific feedback. So just to read through some of the things that we can list on TELA. So some of the things we can list on TELA applications as details is leads review, needs improvement, bugs, errors, inappropriate, visually appealing, incomplete, in-depth, corrupted, works well, plagiarized, unique, malicious, benevolent, just to name a few of the details. So we hope that this will provide a more realistic picture of the ratings and experiences than just a number.
On that note, maybe we can add like deprecated or something, or end of life.
Absolutely.
All right. If there are no more questions, Six can talk a little bit more about some of the integrations we have. And if there's anything or any aspect of TELA where you'd want more clarification, or if there's a feature that we might have missed in this ZeroPoint that you want explained a little more, please feel free to let us know. Six, I don't know if maybe you wanted to show some of like the Ngram integration. That might help some people visualize kind of how the wallet interacts with these applications.
Yeah, we can do. Just give me 1 sec to start it.
In the meantime, I know we had heard that there was some maybe some misconceptions about how Ngram or future releases of Ngram will communicate with decentralized applications. We are, in fact, moving forward with the XSWD WebSocket protocol. So basically, any request coming from an application will come to your wallet, or Ngram in particular, and you'll have to grant permission for every action that is taken or requested by the application. And if you provide the access, which you'll be prompted for in Ngram, if you allow it, then you'll send, well, either way, whether you allow it or decline or deny it, it'll send a response back to the application, which can then be handled appropriately. But I did just want to clear the air that we are still using the WebSocket connectivity. It will be permissioned, and then we've actually added some additional functionality as well, and further reinforce the security. So hopefully 6 is almost ready, then we can kind of demonstrate that. And I think, Rio, in particular, you had a question about how it might look to the user when they're interacting with these applications. So hopefully we can show you, at least in its current state, what that will look like.
So I have a development build of Ngram version 0.6.0, codename Enigma here. As Dank had mentioned, this is fully integrated with Darrow's XSWD WebSocket protocol. And what we will be doing with this today is showing how a TELA site can be launched. So I have Ngram open here, and I will go to the TELA module and in this TELA module, I have a entry for a SCID as well as a history list for all of the different TELA sites that I have access. So to launch a TELA application, all I need to do is paste a smart contract ID into the entry. And after I do so, I get a TELA application opened up in my browser. And this is the TELA demo application that is part of the TELA repo. And what we can do with this is we can connect to Ngram with XSWD. So I'll press the connect button in the top right. And as you can see, it's a permission connection in Ngram here that we have to deny or approve. So in my TELA demo application, I can see that I'm now connected. It's showing my wallet address. This application was designed with the purpose of learning in mind in terms of TELA. So what developers and users can do with this demo app, if they've connected, is use one of the many calls in the drop down to see the call itself and the response that the wallet sends for that call. And one interesting thing we can talk about here is the TELA links. So TELA links is yet another feature of TELA, which allows TELA sites to essentially reference each other in a similar way to hyperlinks. So to demonstrate that, we will create a TELA link in the demo site here. And you can just imagine this as a clickable link in a website. So I've called my TELA link, or I've clicked on it if we are pretending this is a real site. And what that did was it sent a request to Ngram saying that the TELA site would like to open a TELA. And when it does that in Ngram, I'm presented with the likes and dislikes and the average rating for the TELA application that it is trying to open. So before I accept or deny this, I can view the ratings and obviously choose to accept or deny as per the information from the smart contract. So in this case, we can accept which opened up another TELA application in my browser. So in this case, it's the same application because I use the same smart contract ID. But we can imagine that as being two different TELA sites that we just link to through a click. In the list of commands, you can get a bit of a preview as to what will be released in Ngram Enigma. Some of the integrations that Ngram has worked towards is integrating all of the Gnomon functionality through Ngram's WebSocket or through Ngram's XSWD connection. So for those familiar with XSWD, it has a daemon pass-through, which means that once an application is connected, they can submit daemon calls as well as wallet calls through that single connection. And with Ngram Enigma, Gnomon will be handled similarly to the daemon pass-through. They are not permissioned, so once connection is approved, the DApp can query the Gnomon database and get a substantial amount of things that are not as easily accessible through any regular RPC, such as all of the owners and smart contracts, or finding specific pieces of smart contract information. Further down the list, there is the Epic section, which is another integration that is close to release.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, this is pretty much how easy it is for a user, and as you can see, also as a developer, to interact with Dero and TELA in specific. But I don't know if any of you noticed, though, that we also added full simulator support and Ngram. So you can actually use Ngram now alongside your development.
Absolutely. That is very handy.
So I think we will wrap things up here. I know we had some time for questions earlier, but I did want to open the floor again for anyone who might have any further questions, maybe about the demo you saw, or maybe even comments. But I did want to ask or request again from everyone who might be watching or listening to this module that we do greatly appreciate any feedback. So please let us know in our chats and our socials, or even on GitHub. And also TELA is completely open source. So, you can, of course, help in the development and shaping the future of it. But thank you. And with that, we'll open up the floor.
So one question regarding accessing TELA website through Ngram. So we just saw a demo where we have to input the smart contract of, I guess, the index smart contract of each TELA website we want to access. Do you see a future where we could have this functionality previewing or adding like static screenshot of the target website instead of like just putting the smart contract, like just for ease of use? Will that be something possible? Perhaps, GNOME could index like a preview picture of the list of websites.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely work towards, creating a proper UI for the search engine. And then, of course, the displaying of results. We do have some, and we'll work around these, but there are some size limitations about like how much we can actually fit in Ngram. But those are things that we can solution, and we will obviously improve on the UI. And we also actually look forward to seeing, maybe someone might develop a proper browser for TELA content, because you don't necessarily need to have a wallet involved to view TELA content. You really just need a connection to the node or a node. So we hope to see some advancements there. There's going to be a whole lot that can be built on top of TELA, like Moko had discussed earlier. We want to see a lot of that, and there's a lot of things that can come as well, like as he mentioned, the like creating a contract similar to the username contract for Dero addresses, right? The human readable addresses. I mean, we could do the same for like proper URL registration. So there are opportunities, and I think Alumno actually recently tweeted that there could be efforts to combine TELA and his Dero NS or name server integrations that could actually provide a solution there for URLs and also create bridges to the external web. But as you can see, we designed everything to be a really open standard. We're not trying to limit users or developers in any way, and we're also not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? We wanted to use the existing technology, but just enhance it. So that's pretty much my long-winded answer.
I just want to chip in a bit here. So because when I was watching the demonstration, I was really thinking about what's the best use case, for Devo for this demonstration on this technology. But the first thing that came to my mind is that, is the possibility of having an immutable marketplace, everything running on the Devo ecosystem. And because you're connected to your wallet, I presume based on the interaction between the web browser and the Ngram wallet, if let's say that site, you are selling something using Devo, for example, we can simply execute the purchase or sell or buy on the browser and then interact with the Ngram to, basically an immutable e-commerce. But if I were to ask Dan and fix a question, during the initial phase of your brainstorming, what was your problem statement and use case to having this TELA?
Well, first, we have, it is quite funny. This is the second time we've gotten this question, which I don't know why I'm surprised by it each time. But we have, theory crafting sessions, and, each of us have our own ideas for like the next thing that we can build. And in almost every situation, and I say this, between our work with the foundation as well as Civilware, we're always trying to solve a problem, or whatever solution we come up with to closely align with our values, which we all happen to share in the values within the Cypherpunk manifesto. So there's always that as an underlying motivator. But Six had released this idea in a roundabout way when he attended Nonsensus. He actually spoke briefly there about it. It wasn't necessarily geared towards web, but the underlying ideas were there. And part of our theory crafting sessions, it was brought up, and then sometimes in those sessions we start solutioning, and then in this case it snowballed into what it is now. So I know I'm not fully answering your question because there are a lot of factors that played into it or affected the result and motivated us. But really, I think it was just an initial idea and a collaborative effort to push it into reality in the best way that we could think of, which happened to be this decentralized web standard. We're going to leave that to you guys to build. We've got other things that are in our pipeline. So we were not going to plug anything like that yet, but we have other things that we have to get out there. So please, all of you web devs out there, try to rise up to the challenge, and let's see what we can build.
Then thanks, Dan. Maybe you can think of creating an immutable database e-commerce marketplace. But that's what I was thinking when I look at this demo.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of locally executing front ends for immutable contracts can themselves be immutable. So kind of fascinating in a very permanent way for anybody that finds that intriguing and motivating.
All right. Any other questions?
Do you guys have planned? Do you guys have planned to release that version of Enigma that you just showed us anytime soon?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we should have mentioned that. We will release that soon. It will not be a full official release. So we're going to create a dev branch on the official repo, and then we'll release it there. So at least developers can use it, and hopefully it'll aid them in their development. But yeah, it'll be out there soon.
All right, it's amazing. Thanks. And maybe some comment that I would just like to add. On the first round of questions, when Meta asked a question and Dan answered it, he used a term that it struck me because it helped me realize like what we're dealing with. When he said traditional web while answering Meta's question, like it put everything into perspective, because what we have here, because of you guys, we are now diverging from what we have known as a web, because we have been used to giving up our ownership of traffic and the data, and what this allows us to do, I believe it's just amazing. There's this TELA site that I believe it's very ad hoc to be one of the first made by Salim. And I encourage everyone to read it, because he just describes like the magnitude of this better than I can. And even just the fact that all the TELA sites that are deployed will be alive as long as the Ethereum blockchain exists is an amazing value proposition, because for all of those people that have websites deployed, they know how costly it can become. So yeah, I just encourage everyone to try this out, explore it by yourselves, and yeah, please go ahead and use it.
Yeah, thank you. It's really sticks. He was the lead engineer for all this. So I really want to make sure that he can't snake out of taking credit where credit's due, because he deserves all the recognition. He did a really great job on the standard.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank all of you and everyone listening for taking the time. We really do appreciate it. And make sure if you have any comments or feedback, please send it our way. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming out, guys.